Genius Marketing in Automotive, what brokers do better than carriers. Are they smarter? Do they have better genetics? Or are they better at sales and marketing? If you've got questions about AI, LLM, getting leads, or talking to dealers, chime in, say hello, make new friends, and network with the best on ATI Auto Business. What's up, ecosystem? Welcome back to Industry Logistics on ATI Auto Business, where everyone learns more about the automotive industry. If this is your first time here, please do feel welcome. Say hello. You can click like and share, and I thank you for that. Appreciate that. We got a big show today, and let's see what we got. There's my digital bell. We have a huge show today. We got a pretty good sized panel. Let's take a look and see what we've got here. I guess before I do that, let me add my co-host, Sue. Can you see me and hear me okay?
I can. Can you see and hear me?
I can. Let's bring up that screen. I can see you. I can hear you.
Awesome.
And thank you so much for jumping in. YouTube and LinkedIn. What we're doing today is... Let me share the screen here. We're going to do Genius Marketing in Automotive.
Okay, I'm getting it.
What brokers do better than carriers. And don't worry, you'll get your chance. If you disagree, you can jump in the live chat, of course. If you agree, you can jump in the live chat. And then we'll do follow-up shows of what do others do better than, so on. And this is not a competition, but a conversation. We know that there are, there's some tug of war, and Skip is not afraid to post about it on LinkedIn. He's our featured guest today. He says lots of companies these days want to sound high-tech and cool, so they throw around terms like AI in their ads. Right? You're seeing that. We're seeing a lot of comparisons. Just in brokerages, there's a lot of comparisons happening on LinkedIn. Justin Liu is with us today. Justin was with us on a recent show. He is I believe he's the founder of Truckpedia. He'll be able to set us straight on that. Likes to talk about trade shows, marketing, business, scaling your business. David is with us today, David Ray Jr. He's also on LinkedIn writing about struggles in communication and what it looks like to work on and develop tools to try to solve problems. Keith Bradley is with us today. Now, Keith Bradley is an industry professional, and we want to, I always say, know your ecosystem. And that's today's panel. It's going to be great. I do want to mention Tuesday night, just the other night, I had on Automotive Ecosystem, an amazing panel of, these are industry professionals that are all speaking at Auto Intel Summit, which is a very executive style show conference later this month in Raleigh. And in fact, it made such a splash that Auto Remarketing Magazine did a feature article. I didn't know they were going to do that.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Pretty neat. That's a first, actually. Take another lap. That ATI shows up as a feature article on auto remarketing. That's really cool. So it is the ecosystem's neutral zone. We are standing in the middle of the intersection, taking fire, and we do it because we believe it's important. Hey, did you get the memo? We're 5 minutes in. Got another 10 minutes maybe of news. We'll try to move it along quickly. But you sent me this, Sue. I didn't share the company. Oh, dang it, it's on there. Anyways, they are doing update of payment terms. What's going on? How do you feel about it? Why is it happening? And you're on courtesy mute. You're on courtesy mute. Ding.
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now. Take it away.
I don't know why it's going on. I'm pretty sure everybody's going to have a problem with it. That's a hell of a quick pay fee for one. Two, they originally were quick pays for free. I think it was what, 7 days?
Mm-hmm.
Went from 7 days, then it went to 15 days, and now we're to 30. So, you know, I don't even know what to say about it, but I would
Well,
think that's really a high quick pay fee.
Mm-hmm.
quick
That's
pays, yeah. So this is interesting, and I think it's going to come up today. This is good. What a broker has to do to stand in front of the shipper and wait for them to pay,
Yeah.
right,
and then pay a
Yes.
carrier. I
Yes.
understand their
right,
position,
right. Yeah,
but
I do the same thing.
yeah, is it? I mean, there must be a reason, and really, it'd be great,
I,
Jay. It'd be great to interview them and ask them instead of
I'm
speculate
gonna
live.
guess because it happens to me too. You get slow pays. You get, from big companies, they don't pay
Right?
you. So you're either pulling it out of your own pocket or you have to wait till that money comes in.
So, as the neutral zone, what we're pointing out here is that this is happening,
Right.
and if you are the carrier working direct for the shipper, it may be tough. You might have to
Yeah.
say this to your drivers. I don't
Yeah.
know. So it's part of the reality of being a broker is having
Dispatch,
to.
how may I help you?
That can't be an easy
How
update
are
to
you?
share. You
Right.
don't want to do that, right? So it's part of it.
Nah, that's all right.
Well, and
Um,
I'm sure it
He's on the
will
phone. He called right
prohibit
now.
some people hauling
Slow
for
your
them as well.
Well, that's a good point. Just like any other,
Yeah.
anytime rates go up, you lose a couple
Yeah. Can you
customers,
pick that
Yeah.
up?
or
Yep.
not rates, but costs or
Yeah,
fees or
costs. Yeah.
yeah.
And yeah.
Um, Central
Don't
Dispatch,
think they do, but let
they
me
want
check
you to
for
refer a
that.
friend to get a month of free
You
service.
want the,
I'm asking
local
you,
call
is that
number
is
to
that
see if you can make it?
what do you think
That's
of that deal?
normal. They
Yeah.
always do this.
Oh, okay.
They've been doing it for years.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I mean, that's normal. It's
Well,
the first time I've
then
seen
this is
that
an
kind of
example.
advertisement.
This is an example of genius marketing.
Right?
Right? That's what we're talking about today. And
Sure.
that is part of it. Is that
You-
what's so genius about good marketing? We're also going to talk about authentic marketing. Oh ho. Here's one because you can do whatever you want. This is AutoTransport. Now this is freight, but it still applies. I don't know who that is. Okay, in freight, this guy says, "Bro, have some dignity. It's been 5 hours and they still have not called us to get loaded. Send TONU, which is truck ordered, not used, which is basically, what do they call dry run fee stuff." And this guy says, "Absolutely not. Leave the pickup. You knew when booking this load there was no detention." So, yeah. I mean, can you be shamed into doing the right thing? I don't know. I guess not. Sue, this one's for you. I know you're working, but I got one for you.
Okay.
This is Janice.
Yeah.
The question is, Sue,
Yeah.
what's going on with this rejected ratings thing?
So, okay, here's the thing. A company took a load, stole the truck.
73678.
This is on Central Dispatch, just so everybody knows. I contacted Central Dispatch for help with this because they're on Central Dispatch. Their insurance had just been canceled. And they stole the truck. They had somebody else pick it up for me or for them. So some poor guy there in Miami that picked it up, didn't have a clue what was going on, took it to Cocoa, Florida for some reason. That's not where it was going to. Dropped it off in Cocoa, Florida, where it was stripped of the motor and the transmission. Then they relisted it with another broker and had it delivered to the customer. Why, I'm not sure. Why you wouldn't just let a truck disappear, but that's beside the point. Anyways, I contacted Central for help. They would not help. I said, well, how can you have a company on here doing loads with no insurance? All of a sudden, then they got pulled. I noticed that. So all I did as far as the review, I just said, this is what they did. And somehow or another, that's going against their policy. I didn't say anything bad. Like I didn't cuss. I didn't, and I could have. Trust me. All I said is exactly what happened, and I said I have proof of everything, and they keep pulling it off. That's the second time I've put a review on there. So what's the purpose? I mean, I don't get it
Well, you're making a good case to me. I mean,
because nobody knows it.
you stated the facts of a transaction, what, gone wrong? I mean, how would
Oh
you
yeah,
get
and all the
it?
phone numbers that were working were all shut off. And that's I'm telling Central about this. Basically, they're going out there and they're stealing vehicles, and you're still letting them be on Central Dispatch. So they said they didn't have anything to do with that and blew me off with that. So when I'm trying to review them, and then I'm saying exactly what happened, and that goes against their policies. And I mean, I should don't think I have what I actually wrote on there, but let me see. I don't know if
Yeah,
it
I'd
holds
be
it.
curious to read it,
Yeah, let
to
me see
weigh
if it
in
holds
on it. We've already talked about the facts, but
It goes individual.
I'm gonna say that I don't, based on what you said, I don't understand it.
Oh, this is what I wrote.
Okay.
This company stole my vehicle. They were contracted via Central to pick it up. They then sent a different truck driver. I have proof of all of this. They took it to Cocoa, Florida, where the motor and tranny were removed. Then this transport paid another broker, which I have proof of all of that too, to deliver it to the customer at night. And that's what it said, leave it at night. And leave it with anyways, I have proof with all of this stuff, with all the phone numbers. All the phone numbers were shut off, and Central it says was shut off in January. Central will not remove them. They have no insurance. And then he said that was going against their policy. It says this comment included inappropriate content.
Okay, so I am having a hard time disagreeing with you, and I guess then, so as the neutral zone, let's make a recommendation. What if uh, a rejected rating like that happens, that somebody reaches out to you?
Yeah, and tell me what I'm saying that's wrong. Yeah.
And obviously that what if isn't going to apply to all versions of inappropriate content or
Right.
whatever, but I
Right.
can't find the inappropriate content in your,
Yeah.
I can't. I don't see it.
Yeah, that's what I would like to know
Because
too. And
aren't the
I
facts,
changed it from the time before too, just
are we
to make
saying
it
that,
different.
are the facts inappropriate content?
Maybe that's what it is. But I
Dang
do
it,
know
that's
that
where we're at?
they did finally pull the company off of Central.
Ah, well, interesting.
Yeah, after
Well,
I threw a fit, yeah. But
okay.
didn't help me with
Well,
this.
now that is interesting. Well, it's a small win.
hmm
Okay. Well,
And here's the thing. I thought maybe the reason why my rating was rejected was because they pulled them. But you can still leave feedback because they may eventually come back onto Central. So we've still been able to leave feedback. And if that was the case, then wouldn't they say rejected because no longer on Central? No, it says inappropriate content. So
well, that's right. Aren't the owners of that company right now just rearranging letters in the name
Yeah.
of the company? Just
yeah, trying to
uploading documents
Yeah.
right now? Probably.
exactly.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Exactly.
I am sorry. I apologize. That was
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to share. I got some really nice. This person was watching the dispatcher training series. They learned a lot. And they said, "Why are brokers such a-holes? Just be a decent human being." I thought that was really funny. And they called my show authentic. That's super cool.
That's
You know, in the world of genius marketing, I really do try to make an authentic show. I know that there is, you know, there's business and marketing and advertising, and then there's also services, and you know, what I try to do is let people share what it is they want to share. Also set up topics and otherwise, but there is no secret agenda here. We're actually trying to stand in the middle and make an authentic show. We're not pretending to be life coaches or anything like that. So, thank you so much. Really do appreciate that. And in fact, this guy, Prince, he wanted a copy of the spreadsheet. And you know what I did?
Yeah, he'll make
Send him the
everything's
spreadsheet.
secure. Yes, sir.
I don't know how many people I've sent it to now. This thing must be all over the place. All right, so we're going to do a bit of a sniff test today.
Okay.
Yeah.
That.
All right. What does that mean? So do me a favor, stick around. After this, we're going to bring in the panel. We got a huge show. Please jump in the live chat, say hello. Tell us what you think brokers do better than carriers. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Are you completely stressed out from all the calls and the contracts and the verifications of loads where nobody ever answers the phone? Call Murphy Auto Dispatch Services today. Murphy Auto Dispatch Services has over 15 years in the transport industry. We are your office while you are on the road. We book, we verify, and we bill out your loads for you. We have an excellent accounting staff and an even better dispatch team. Give us a call today at 417-273-0021, or if you want to email me, it's murphyautotransport31@yahoo.com. Give us a call today.
That's the voice of Sue. If you need help shipping a car or staying loaded, Murphy Auto Transport Services is there for you. Visit murphyautotransportservices.com. Here we go, jumping right in. This is so cool. Please do help me wish a very warm welcome to our feature panel today, Genius Marketing in Automotive with, all right, we have Skip, Justin, David, and Keith. This is so cool. So what we're going to do, that was the order that I kind of had it set in. Skip, you made the cover of the magazine on the show thumbnail. So why don't you kick us off?
Okay.
Skip, what's going on? What are we doing?
I saw that. Well, I was interested in your comment the other day about you said, okay, what do brokerages do better than carriers? And I think that's apples and oranges. I mean, you're like, is it marketing? Yeah, maybe. I personally agree with that. But I think it's apples to oranges because brokers and carriers don't do the same thing. I mean, well, we'll give you an example. When I look at the census every month for FMCSA to see how many carriers are out there and stuff like that, 98.6% of the carriers in auto transport have 4 trucks or less. That's the market. There's only 1.4% have more than 4 trucks, and when we get into the 50, 60, 80, 100 trucks, that number is really small. So hold on to that for a second. It kind of makes my point. When we talk about marketing, we're not talking about the traditional ads in the newspaper, TV spots. When we talk about marketing in the carrier broker, environment, we're actually talking about dedicated salespeople. How many people do you have on the phones trying to go get work, right? And this is why I don't see carriers and brokers being in competition, because they're two parts of the same system, right? One does what the other one can't. It's not about who's better or who's worth. They do different things, So I mean, since brokers don't maintain, they don't drive, they don't deliver, they don't manage hours of service, right? Their only mission is to acquire, right? Assign, track and trace, and do the billing and the accounting, right? That's all they do. My guys normally they were expected to do 50 outbound calls to shippers every single day. Every single one of them, 50 calls a day.
Right.
Hundreds and hundreds of calls.
Yeah, I want to stop right there, and we're going to keep moving this around. But what you just said, 50 to 100 calls a day. I'm always amazed at anybody that can do that every day. I can't take 49 no's a day. I can't do it.
And that's exactly it. And
right.
People go, well, these guys also have to manage their current accounts. They still have to answer the phone calls from their shippers. They still have to do all the other stuff and get that involved, right? Now, when we're talking about the average company having 4 trucks or less, do you got the folks to do that? No.
There you go.
Right?
Staff, you need a bench, right?
So, right, exactly. So, and it wasn't uncommon for me or somebody like me to be on the road 3 days a week, flying out nationwide, or even to Canada.
Right. So they're setting them up, and then you're flying around and you're knocking them down. And I tell you what you said there too is, you made me think of the large brokerages. When we think of the companies that have a lot of loads on Central, they have a
That's
staff
exactly
making
what they're doing.
calls, and then they have somebody going in and closing them.
Yep. I
Yeah.
mean, I would go from, Boston to Atlanta to Nashville to Albuquerque, back to Phoenix, get everything straightened out, go up to Seattle. It's a lot of work, and it's not something that a smaller carrier has the resources to do. So, I mean,
Fair enough.
and,
Yeah.
and then when we look at like what's involved with all that, brokers provide a lot of tech and
This
management.
is Janice with
Uh,
Marketing Training.
When we're talking about stuff like the TMS, Salesforce, pricing, EBOLs, condition reports, the apps, accounting, I mean, you get the point, right? The average carrier doesn't have the resources for that, right? They don't have the budget to maintain those systems. So they're literally, except for the load boards where they're paying for access, they're literally borrowing that technology from the brokers, right?
So why do carriers feel like they're in competition with brokers then?
Well,
I'm making an assumption, but I think it's correct.
they do, and I think it's misguided for the most part. Okay, if you're Sierra Mountain, if you're Jack Cooper, if you're Midwest, you are in competition with the brokers, right? But I think that if you're in that other 98.6%, you're actually lucky to have somebody out there hunting for you. Now, I mean, there's all kinds of other stuff.
But in the
I mean,
rates is where we see, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Well, okay, so I mean, first of all, you got to look at exposure. Let me explain exposure. It's the amount of money I've paid carriers that customers haven't paid me yet, right? And I mean that.
Right, we're just talking about that. Exactly.
I'm actually, for a larger brokerage, I'm comfortable with about $2 million worth of exposure, right? Because most shippers want 30, 60, some of them even 90-day terms. They don't want to pay me for 90 days.
Oh, I think it's
Okay,
6 months
okay,
in
the
some
average-
cases.
Okay, now if you're Jack Cooper or like you said, a Sierra Mountain, somebody like that, you can hold on, you can wait, you can pay your guys. But if you're S&S trucking from Syracuse, you ain't got 90 days to pay your guys. So I have to pay you so you can keep going and put gas in your trucks, feed your families, blah, 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 right? While I'm waiting 90 days for, Lithway, I'm just, making up a name.
Sure.
to
But
pay me.
maybe there's a
I
way
have-
to
I have
improve
that two- I have to
payment
have $2 million.
cycles.
Right. I have to have that $2 million to do that. Right. I think they're worried about competition. I don't think people understand, I'll be the one that says the quiet stuff out loud here. Obviously we always cause some kind of uproar on LinkedIn, Jay. So
What?
let's do it today.
Well, the LinkedIn's watching right now. So
Really?
here's what I want to do. I want to do this because we have a lot to cover. I want to say hello to Justin.
Yep.
So Skip, hang on 1 second for me. Justin, what's happening? What are we talking about? Why are we talking about this?
Hey, what we want to talk about today mainly as I wanted to touch on conferences, right? The trucking companies, when it comes to finding shippers, and there are a lot of places to go to, but a lot of times trucking companies they say, wait a minute, if I type in to Google direct shippers near me, nothing populates, right? Which means conferences are the great way, one of the best way to land new prospect, closing deals, right? So that's kind of the things that we wanted to focus on is how can we find out what conference to go to, and then what that comes down to is the first thing is what's the intention going to conference? Is it to find out about more technology? Is it to understand where our target shippers are going? And then by asking yourself that question, then you can go into the details. Hey, If I'm trying to, if I'm looking at, if I'm hauling plastics, if I type in plastic conferences, then right away I can find a lot of shippers going to plastic conferences. Everybody there is a target customer of mine. So with that, you can do a lot of prep work, meaning you can do your pre-conference prep work, intra-conference prep work, and post-conference prep work to maximize what you can get out of it, right? So who are the people going to conference? How can we, get to know them, set up meetings before you even go to those conferences?
Now, right there, I think we're 2 for 2 already on Skip and Justin saying things that if you have a small company and you're a carrier, what are you guys talking about? How can I actually achieve that? And I want to ask this question. Let's say a small company carrier goes to a trade show, has their ducks in a row, a little bit of marketing, business cards, outfits. Are they looking for only local companies, or can they actually help a company in a different state?
That depends on their, this goes back to the pre-conference homework, depends on what their goal is. Even when it comes to conferences, there's small and large conferences that they can go to. Some cost money, some are free, right? Like you mentioned, depends on the size of your company. For a small trucking company, if you only got 3 to 5 trucks and you're doing nothing but local runs, so you're probably just looking to connect with local companies who will be your target customer. But if you're doing nationwide, all 48 states, right, it doesn't stop you from connecting with larger shippers.
This is pretty neat. I'll see if I can pull it up here real quick. So, Charles Beatty, he is with, who's he with again? Oh, what's the name of the company? Acme Car Shipping. He had shared this on LinkedIn about Midwest Relocation Conference. This is since St. Louis, April 9 through 11. And I was like, man, I want to learn more about that. I never even heard of that. And he says, great place to meet relocation professionals, real estate agents, household goods moving companies, mortgage companies, auto shippers, third-party services. Man, now there's a show to check out, right? That's what we're talking about. Oh, man, registration's already closed. Maybe next year. But because if you find yourself, right, let's say you're on Central Dispatch and you feel like there's no way to stand out. How do you stand out? Trade shows is one of the ways?
Yeah. I mean, one of the best ways to do that, though, is if you're a carrier, partner up with somebody else in the business, right? I'm not saying like in a financial sense. I'm just saying I have carriers all the time go, hey man, are you going to Used Car Week? I am. Hey man, can we meet up? Can you introduce me to some people? Absolutely. Right? So sometimes it's a case of getting somebody that already knows the woods if you're going to go hunting. Right? Partner up with somebody that already done. Oops, I've lost myself. There we go. Killing my camera. Great.
It's all good, man. It's ATI.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do that on ATI. Like, okay, cool.
Anyway, I mean, so I have guys do that all the time. Go, hey man, I've never been to TIA, which is next week here in Phoenix. And
TIA.
It's a giant brokerage conference.
Is it in Phoenix next week?
Yeah, and
really?
so folks will go, I'm just getting into the brokerage business. Can you take me and can we go kiss some babies and shake some hands? Yes, right. Learn the business. To Justin's point, find the people that do what you want to do and go and meet them. Learn the business. Get out there and let people see you.
So yeah, there.
90% of the game is showing up.
Transportation and intermediaries. That's awesome, man. That's 2 trade shows. If you're not taking notes, I mean, you can't. You don't have to. So, hey, okay, David, please say it's a good job, Skip. David, please say hello.
Hey, great to be back. David Ray here. I'm an information technology consultant. I've been working in supply chain and logistics for about 5 years. Built a number of applications for shippers, brokers, and carriers, and just here to contribute, any value from the tech perspective that I can. One thing that I did want to add that I found interesting, bridging the gap between where Skip started with their, I think it was 96% of carriers are 4 trucks or less. And what Justin's talking about is the effort it takes to go and sell and figure out, how am I going to grow my customer base? And to me, the big theme here is kind of like staff augmentation. And that's where I see technology playing a huge role. So if I'm a carrier and I need to grow my business, but I don't have enough time, that's where, Truckpedia comes into place and helps me finding loads. And, I think there's a lot of places where technology can come in and really help people grow without having to spend as much time and hire additional staff. I think that's one of the reasons, why Murphy Auto Transport is important, is because these guys don't have time to go out there and figure out, where am I going to book my next load? And so that's one thing I just wanted to point out. So
I love it. And I tell you, I just realized, see, I need to rename the show how carriers can compete with brokers. We'd probably have 3 times the views, but I said, well, brokers do better than carriers. Nobody wants to watch that.
Well, how can carriers take advantage of brokers' services?
Ooh, oh, see, now you're talking about taking advantage. Oh, that gets attention.
Yeah, that's a good.
That is a good
right
one.
there. That'll get the fire going.
Hey, David, I saw about what's LLM. What's going on here?
yeah, so large language models and generative AI allow, it's a form of technology where you can interpret data and then you can leverage machine learning to produce an output. So for example, if a customer is requesting an invoice or pricing in the form of text, then the AI can essentially spit out that information. I think it's going to be one of the biggest changes that we're going to see in the industry. And I don't know if it's unfortunate or not, but I think we're going to see the greatest disparity in terms of, people who adopt these technologies. That's going to increase the amount of people who are able to leverage it and to take advantage of it and grow their business. And there's going to be people who are kind of laggards and don't take advantage of it, and they're going to kind of fall to the wayside. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. An example that I always think about, I built a tool recently that could respond to an ETA update. So if a customer says, when is this order going to be shipped or delivered or picked up, it could respond if it had access to the database. So there's a lot of these manual tasks that people are doing that's not really value added. So an average dispatcher can process, let's say, 8 to 10 orders per day. These kinds of tools are going to allow them to process 50, upwards of 100 per day. So it's going to be a really interesting space in the next couple of years.
And as I listen to you talk about that, okay, yeah, disparity always gets my attention, because that is what happens as technology accelerates. There's a group that they flatlined. And that means that, the gap grows. If you want to be efficient in the future, this is going to be terrible, but you have to start to really adopt different AI programs. I don't know if in our spare time, I put a note on my calendar on Fridays. Every Friday, I'm going to try to explore some more AI, because I started finding out about some media AI, and I was like blown away that this already exists. Wow. So whoa, the disparity is going to continue to grow. And I don't know how I don't know what dispatch AI there is, but that sounds like that counts.
Yeah, I think so. In terms of communication, that's one of the biggest opportunities that I've seen. So if you look at an average order being processed, there's the communication for the quote, there's a communication for confirming booking, there's a communication that says, hey, 2 hours prior to pickup, you need to call or contact this person. In theory, all of that could be handled via a large language, an LLM or generative AI. And so that's where I see those manual tasks that are typically handled by either dispatching staff, that could be augmented by technology. And so kind of tying this all together, essentially to me, this is all about staff augmentation. I don't have to hire more people. I can leverage technology in order to complete these tasks. I can achieve the same growth without having to expend as much money. So it's an exciting space to be in. And I think companies like Truckpedia and the topics that Skip brought up. I think, more of the focus would be on building those relationships and those human to human interactions where you get more leverage as opposed to, sending out 1,000 cold emails per day.
Amazing. Keith, you've been very patient.
Hey.
Appreciate that. It's great to have you here. Please say
Good
hello.
to be here again.
What's going on? What's new?
You know what? Just kind of hanging out, killing time these days, Jay. Doing a little bit of consulting on the auto transport with dealerships, and other than that, I'm just paying attention to what's going on here today.
I appreciate that. So on dealers, what do you want to add? What do you want to say?
You know what?
Dispatch, how may I help you?
There's a lot that, as I'm listening to what everybody's talking about, everything just sort of comes together, right, on the differences between brokers and the differences between carriers. And then the one thing that we don't talk a lot about, or maybe I've missed some of the shows, is all the different verticals that are out there for the auto transport industry that have different requirements and different needs. And that's where brokers come in a lot of places to help support the carriers in what those requirements are, as opposed to just going out and booking a transport and really not knowing what the requirements are that the shipper and the final destination is actually looking for. So those are some of the things I've been focusing on. And the other part of it, and I like what David said a lot about, the AI and using LOM and some of the other things, but it's about data too. And there is so much data that sits out there in the auto transport that comes from different sources where we can help educate the shippers on what it takes to actually ship their car and the costs involved, and the reason why we can start pushing the prices where they need to be to help support these carriers. And we just don't do a very good job of it. Dealerships in particular, they don't understand. They're looking at moving vehicles, but not looking at the big picture, because data that drives a single decision is a lot different than data that drives an industry decision that makes a difference in the long run for a lot of these dealerships.
I'm sitting here thinking about genius marketing. Getting back to genius marketing is that. So I was introduced to the concept. I'm going to give this analogy. I can't remember the original analogy. I need the house clean, but that doesn't mean I want to buy a broom. Brokers focus on customer solutions. And the marketing I see come out of carriers are it's images of trucks. A dealer doesn't want a truck, they want the car moved. To the dealer, it isn't the same thing.
Not at all. And there's different kinds of moves for dealers too. Some that are more important than others. You've got the auction to the dealer to auction, dealer to consumer, dealer to dealer. All of those are looking at different expectations. We start looking at dealers, and I watched one of your shows the other day. What was the name of the lady? Rubenstein? Resilient?
Oh, Gail Rubenstein, Retail Resilient. Great show.
So
yeah.
It was a great show because I've been preaching what she's been doing to dealers for 3 to 4 years now, and trying to work with different providers that will help provide a better solution for dealers. Instead of looking at the lowest cost, it's what's my total cost based on the amount of time it takes to get it picked up, delivered, PDI'd through the reconditioning process, photo sets, final photo sets, fixed stops, finally marketed on the website, wherever they're going to market, and then finally to the consumer. And you've talked to dealers, they say, well, we've got 3 days that we want to have it from purchased to fully marketed. And the way that we're set up now, it simply can't happen. And working with different companies that help, such as reconditioning companies, and having somewhere to move that information relative to pickup time and delivery time directly into a reconditioning business that then works through fixed ops. And once it gets into that dealer management system, they can really start to keep track of what's my real cost of acquiring that vehicle based on the length of time from purchase to the length of time that it gets reconditioned and marketed and finally sold, and turn that lot over a lot quicker. When they simply look at the cost to move that vehicle, they're missing the big picture. And some of the larger dealerships are starting to get that, but most don't.
Yeah, Keith, I agree with that. I mean, I grew up in the car business. My parents owned car, points, and the key word is velocity.
Yep.
Right? How fast can I turn my inventory? And a lot of this, okay, when we go back to smaller carriers, the reason the dealers go to brokers is because if a carrier falls off a load, right? If they've only got 4 trucks, they've got a very limited ability to recover that load. So now here we go again. We're vetting a new carrier. We're trying to get it assigned. We're trying to negotiate payment. There's that velocity. Now we've lost 3 days. Now we lost 2 days. We've lost whatever. And to your point, they're getting very tight with that requirement. I mean,
Yep.
I had a dealer recently ask me, hey, these conditions reports I get from XYZ. Yeah, I won't name the TMS. How can I get these integrated into my fixed ops, into my refund system? So by the time that I get the car, my guy already has a good idea what the car looks like, what's going to have to happen, how many guys he has to schedule. Do we have to schedule paint? Do we have to, right? It's all about that velocity. And unfortunately, that's kind of what brokers do better is to Jay's point, brokers sell the solution, right? And, dealers are like, of course you have a truck. That's how you transport cars. But what else can you do for me? How are we making this faster, right?
Well, the other thing, Skip, with that is that what brokers don't do a very good job at, some of them understand it. And I would say at the higher level within a broker, they understand that process. But you start getting into the dispatch side, and many of the dispatchers are clueless as to what the real business is and what we're trying to accomplish. We don't do a good job of educating. And there's a lot of things that we can do, and there's ideas that are out there. It's getting an industry overall to understand those things and work together instead of looking at ourselves in separate silos where it's the end customer that matters. And that's what we're trying to get a solution to. We're a small piece in a lot of that. A lot of times, what can carriers do and brokers do to help educate each other? Because it's a shipper to a broker to a carrier to a destination, which is the shipper a lot of times. And we just don't connect the dots for an industry advantage that anybody can get by simply looking at the bigger picture instead of all the little pieces. Because one part of that little piece that breaks down has a chain reaction all the way across the rest of the businesses. One of the things I had suggested trying to work with a reconditioning company is say, look, what will help those dealerships is, so what dealerships typically do is they're going to do a quick photo set, get them online so they start marketing the vehicle, and then they're going to do a final photo set that's going to have 31 photos or whatever it might be. Carriers simply could take on any type of system. They can do it through through Super Dispatch. They've got you take photos of the car, and we do that every single time we pick up a car. Those initial photo sets that we take could be very specific, can be added right to the dealer's vehicle management or the dealership management system. They can have a full photo set before that car even hits the lot.
Yep.
But they don't want to do it. But it takes work and it takes coordination. And that's where I saw the resilient auto, whatever. I've been saying that for years, and finally somebody has done it. Because unless somebody's pushing it, you need to have somebody in an operations area within a dealership or a dealership group that gets the entire thing and is going to put it together.
I love what you said about dispatch. You reminded me of something. As a dispatcher, I was always surprised when the dispatch department at a brokerage was as... I thought I was pretty attentive and conscientious. So I was always surprised when I got that from a brokerage in the dispatch department too. Sue, I think how does it feel when you get totally brushed off? You're like, this is important. Can we please communicate? I'm like, yeah. And like, no, that's not right. If the shipper knew the way you were talking to me, they wouldn't be happy.
Nope.
But the shipper's never going to know. Is that in the morning meeting? Okay, everybody. Who cares? Shipper's never going to know.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. And same thing. I mean, this sounds silly, but you can't always tell how people talk to you in a text because I do a lot of texting, and they talk the same way, and they're talking to you that way. And I'm just the other day, in fact, I had a guy tell me that I was having a bad day because I said, you should, if you want to load, you shouldn't probably talk to me this way, because he was like, send me this load now, kind of thing. I don't, that kind of thing.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, well, I have to know who you are and all this kind of thing. And then he shot me another one that was super rude again. And I'm just like, I don't deal with companies that talk to me like this. This isn't the way you work with another person. And I'm sorry. And then I had another guy today tell me this I was going to give him a load, and he said, okay, I will give you big pleasure. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? So
Great.
So, sometimes you get them a little too nice too, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it happens all the time.
Maybe he's
And
just
if I
trying to
talk
make you
somebody-
smile,
Yeah, well, there you go.
There you go.
He
It
did
worked.
that for sure. I laughed my ass off.
Lost in translation.
But it happens all the time. And if I talk to people like that, I wouldn't get loads, and so, there's something to be said about having, politeness and camaraderie with the people that you work with.
And I like what Keith said earlier and everything going on right here. I feel like there's a silo, right? And all the parties that are not communicating. Carriers are not being educated. They
Yep.
never knew that if you talk to, shippers that way, they're not even gonna reply to you, right?
Nope.
Because they never had experience. They don't even know how to reach out to shippers who were never educated that way. And then brokers only care about, okay, you're a carrier. I'm gonna give this load to you, and you're gonna move it for me. But I don't care about your operation profit margin or anything. For me, when I was a carrier, and brokers a lot of time think that, I don't know if brokers think this way or not. Please correct me if my thinking is incorrect. Brokers, I feel like they just don't care about how carriers operate. But a lot of times, I think they should, because when I first joined my dad's trucking company back in 2018. And we only had 3 trucks. I was probably just booking a couple loads every week with brokers, even though 100% of my loads came from them. But when we grew to 50, although more than half of my loads were coming directly from shippers, but I increased the number of loads I booked with brokers because I got more trucks and I rely on them, right, in that regard. And I have more booking powers just because I become more sustainable as well, because my business is not going to go down because I got a good mix of things. Versus if you work with a carrier with 5 trucks, they're amazing carriers doing a great job for you. But if they're not going to survive a bad market, they're going to go out of business. So yeah, it hurts them, but it hurts the brokers as well, because the carrier you've been working with for a few years, now they're out of business because no one ever taught them or shared with them, hey, this is actually what you can do to build your own shipper base so you can survive the bad days.
Yeah, I think, Justin, you make a good point. I think a lot of brokers talk it, but they don't walk it. They will say, "Hey, we are a carrier friendly," but it's pontificating. Many of them aren't. You see a lot of brokers that say we have this carrier base of 500 different, and I will tell you, 98% of those loads go on central dispatch without any phone calls ever being made. They don't look at who runs what lanes and who does it the best and who's looking for a backload coming back the same way. They just don't do it. They talk it a lot. There's a couple of companies I've been with where the first thing that I did was to help train the dispatchers on the different verticals that are out there and what's important to them. We built software on one that actually would track the distance and the type of vehicle, whether it's a car or a sedan or an SUV or a truck, and then look at the distances and look at the move type. Was it an auction to dealer? Was it dealer to auction? Was it dealer to customer? And then provide them with a breakdown of their total cost by vehicle type, by region, by the average cost based on the type of move it was. Was it a relocation business too? So now they can get some information that really understands what's their needs, what's the cost, what should my expectation be, and is it a quick move? Do I have time? It would also track the number of days to pick up to the number of days to delivery. And that information starts to get to whatever vertical you're in, and they're going, I can make good business decisions based on those factors. And it wasn't hard to build. The data's out there. Like whatever TMS system you might be using, they've got that data. You can pull it right from them. They know the vehicle type, they know the VINs, and you can do all that information to help make this business a lot better, whether it's on a carrier side or whether it's on a broker side or on a shipper side. It's just so broken in the way that we manage the business, especially in the auto transport. It's behind a lot of other industries that have made strides in using some of the technology David's talking about together instead of trying to everybody doing it separately. And that's what's happening. And it's broken that way.
Yeah, just kind of building on that point. One thing I've observed over the past few years, everyone's sort of optimized internally. So the shipper is building the most efficient system for them. The broker does the same thing, and the carrier or the dispatching service that they're working with is building, what works best for them. And none of these systems tend to talk to each other or play well with each other. I think what Justin's doing is really cool because it's creating that marketplace that kind of brings everyone together in terms of connecting shippers and carriers. But even, if you are using brokerages, like Justin mentioned, even with 50 trucks, there was still a need for brokerage services. So I'm not sure how it works out, but I think the more that technology can allow different systems to be more compatible, I think the better off we'll be.
Yeah. I absolutely 100% agree with you, right? So, to echo back what you and Keith both said earlier, even if you regardless for auto hauling or for any regular drive-in freight, reefer, or flatbed, when you have a quote to collect for a shipment, when you send that to to a load board, when it comes back to your system, don't let those data go to waste. Keep them in your own system internally. Your TMS should be collecting that. If it doesn't, that's something we're building to enable brokers, shippers, everybody is when you have a quote request that sends out, even if let's say you didn't work with that carrier specifically on the shipment, you pick someone else, but they give you back a quote. Keep that in your system. The next time you have something, rather than going straight to the board, now the system can trigger a same email, send out to the carriers, hey, can you take it, right? You quoted on this before. How do we reuse that? And you mentioned, Keith, earlier that every broker out there would say, I got 50,000, 100,000, X amount of carriers, but they're only using them once or twice and then forget about them. Not because those people's carriers suck, did a terrible job, but because they don't have any system to capture any of those data to reuse them.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are right. You hear that all the time. We have 50,000 trucks available.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're a broker. We're a carrier-friendly company. And one of the first questions I ask clients is, so how do you manage your carrier advisory board?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there you go. Headlights, right? Well, what? Well, you get your major carriers, your major players together a couple times a year and talk to them and find out how to make all this better, right? Well, not really. We send them marketing emails and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you're not carrier friendly because you're not asking them, how can we help you be more successful? Do that, and people will walk through fire for you, right? Right? I mean, anybody that's been in trucking, what? Oh yeah, man. How can I help you? Pardon? They don't get so that stops that. We just changed the whole gist of the conversation when they say we're carrier friendly, and if you don't have a way to educate your carriers, to communicate with your carriers, get that feedback, you're full of it, man. And you've got 50,000 trucks. Okay, let's pull the data, right? Keep those. Pull the data, and you go, well, you consistently use 1,500 of those.
Yeah, if they even use that many skills.
I was gonna say, I bet it's not even 500.
They might have one or two. I was consulting with one broker, and I can tell you that they did it very, very well. As far as their first phone calls, always were to a carrier that they knew within an area, and one that they had good experiences with, and that they were a top carrier.
And well, like what Justin said, how do we reuse that data? You know, and there's companies out there that are basically doing digital freight match, right? It's direct to carrier. Every time I put a load in, before the dispatchers could even get to it, the system looks at it and goes, okay, who are, and whatever criteria you use for the most reliable carrier, whether it's time to deliver, it's time to pick up, it's price, it's time per mile, whatever you do. But it'll look through the system and go, okay, these are the top 3. We're gonna send them an auto tender, and if they accept it, it's assigned. I don't even have a dispatcher to call anybody, right? And 40% of your of the average brokerage's freight can be assigned that way. 40%. So that leaves the other 60% of lets the dispatchers do the hard stuff. Fine. Okay, who goes to Upper Peninsula, Michigan? Who goes to West Virginia? Right?
Yep.
That's the thing. But the Nashville to Memphis, the computer can assign that. Like David said, that just goes. That just goes. But you have to have that technology, right? And we all know, anybody's been around for a little while, we know 10 years ago we were phone books and fax machines, right?
Yeah.
It was just like pure murder to get somebody to buy a cell phone, right? And go, hey man, I can't fax you. How about I email you, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
Everything was faxed, and now we're talking about, you know, large language models and generative AI. We're talking about.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yes, things have moved really quick.
Yeah.
How long has the electronic BOL been around? It's now, we're going on 10 years.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. But that's the thing. But okay, how many of that 98.6% of carriers have been in business for 10 years?
There you go.
Oh, and I'm glad you said it. Because
I was just going to mention that.
So why
popcorn.
Because I've been in the business forever. I shouldn't assume that everybody else has. It just because I know it doesn't mean that they know it. Well, that might be. It's funny when we talk to carriers, that one piece of information could turn them around. Just they're like, oh my gosh,
that's true.
That worked so great. Well,
so
why don't we share that? Why don't we share that?
Yeah, I came from the financial services industry. It was a stock transfer business. I was a COO of a fairly large, one of the largest in the country and in the world. And we used to charge per shareholder account, and it was $10 to $12 per shareholder account. By the time I left, they were charging $2.75 per shareholder. Here was the difference. That industry consolidated because only the big players could afford to stay in it, because they had to invest in technology and SEC regulations and IRS and all of those things. The difference, it's a process is process and operations are operations, but it's understanding your customer. But the difference between auto transport and a lot of other industries is the cost of entry to do auto transport is next to nothing, which means it continues to drive a market of entry instead of a market of maturity. And while we have a lot of mature companies that sit out there, we have a lot of immature participants that don't know the difference between picking up a vehicle for a dealership to picking up a vehicle for a relocation company, for a repo, for whatever this industry does in the different verticals that we have. And that's the difficult part, to get change where it needs to be. And it's not like I want to see all this consolidation, but there needs to be a way of educating. And there almost needs to be an education or passing certain rules and understanding certain verticals before you can even participate in that industry. I know it's asking a lot, but there's a disconnect there somewhere.
Man, Keith, I am right there, because that's what I wanted to ask was, how did we get here? But it doesn't even matter. We're here and we have a problem.
And we're not fixing it.
No.
And I think that's the biggest issue, is that we've had a problem in this, I don't want to say in this industry, but in this marketplace for a long, long time. And there's nothing that regulates it enough to fix it, other than rules for driving a truck.
And who wants more regulation, by the way?
No.
But we keep hoping there can be this correction. Is the problem now, we're at we're at this low barrier to entry to get in, which means you pretty much get out about 6 months later. So, yeah, right. Are there any carriers left that were doing it before 2014? Terrible thing to say. I'm sure there are some, but not near as many as we had hoped. The other thing is, are there now too many brokerages to where the focus is on getting the customer rather than actually providing the solution?
Well,
Without question.
That's something that too, when we talk about are there too many brokers, it's the same thing with brokerages as it is carriers. Okay, everybody thinks, man, that's just the easy money, right? And they'll jump in and get their broker authority, and they're gonna make millions off of just shaving it off the top. And they haven't had conversations with people like me that they go, okay, do you have how many $1 million do you have sitting to the side? For what? For your flow. What? What do you mean flow? It's the same thing. It's an education process.
Yeah.
Those guys go in and out too, right? I mean, 1 year and out, 1 year and out. And so, I mean, I don't like the word problem. You know, I understand.
I know, me neither.
I know.
It's a challenge. How
It's a challenge.
How do we get this out there? How do we create that conversation? How do we create that interaction?
It's like the gold rush. At some point, when the gold rush matured, the best thing to do to make money was to sell shovels.
Yep.
One of the things building on
how
Skip and Pete's
do
points.
we get this conversation between the shippers and brokers and customers? How do we get that going? Because
it'll take years.
Well, now the end result is everybody wants this to work well. Duh. Well, that's how we all make our living. You know. So how do we get all those folks together?
Yeah,
I think this is where, to me, this is where technology plays a huge role, because essentially what's happening is every year more and more competitors come in and they offer a little more for a little less. And then what eventually ends up happening is that no one can provide that for a little less. And I don't know if that makes it the most efficient market, but basically, you know, business owners are participating to make just enough to keep going. Then the bottom 20% get washed out or, you know, lose the will. And then the next group comes in and then, you know, have no idea they're repeating the same process and like around and around they go. And I think the way that, you know, technology plays an important role is because you can compete, you can offer better services, you can figure out more creative ways to serve your customers without, you know, sacrificing your margin. So to me, you know, everyone's kind of barely staying above water and they're trying to make, you know, as much money as they can until they wash out. But, you know, I think that's where technology plays the biggest role, is just helping people come up with more creative solutions to solve the problems for their customers, increase their margins, stay in business, and solve the real problems, as opposed to just, you know, making a money grab and then washing out after a few years.
Yeah. You know, and when you talk about broker and carrier and shipper relationships, what we are really good at is being inconsistent in servicing the customer. It's almost a different experience every single time, depending on what that vertical is too. And being able to deliver some consistency changes what the marketplace looks like too.
Well, and that's the thing. You'll see, you know, brokers all the time. I've had this conversation 100 times. I don't want the carrier talking to my customer. They'll just go straight to the customer from now on. Well, no, 99% of the time, the customer is using a broker because that's the service level they want. They don't want to manage carriers. They don't want to manage track and trace. They don't want to manage payment. They don't want to manage any of that. I need my carrier to talk to the shipper because he needs to know when's the best time to be there. Where do I park? What, blah, blah, blah. Right? Whatever the particular.
Right. Details of the moment.
Because every customer is dynamic. We treat like everybody, like every dealer is the same. We treat every option the same. And it's not true. It's not true at all. And realistically, unless they're that 1.4% of the market, I'm not worried about them stealing my customers.
Yeah.
Right? If they did, then I was doing a poor job.
I was to say, then you're not real secure in what the service that you're providing to begin with.
So why not create that conversation, that dynamic? You know, I think it's paranoia more than the process.
Well, you guys pointed out a good point though. That is, what service are you providing?
Right. If the carrier can just do what I'm doing, then well, what's the point? Then let him. Right? So
Keep my business card handy.
exactly.
Exactly.
Hey, I've handed out business cards at the auction, man. You know, and at the end of the day, when the guy with the little leaf blower sweeps them all into the trash, you know. But yeah.
Suddenly he's running a brokerage. Hey, so all right, getting back, Genius Marketing and Automotive. Number of carriers that we have. This number of carriers. How did this become such a thing to convince a shipper that you're the right company?
Size.
Do shippers just, wow, you've got 300,000 carriers in Rhode Island? Oh, you're definitely the one. Does that work?
No, I don't think so.
No, I mean
Not for the people that know what they're doing.
Right, it worked for the first couple of weeks. It's just
Yeah.
like when, you know, Jay, when we were joking about AI the other day, you know, do people believe that electric toothbrushes have AI in them? Probably not. Sounds good though, right? After a while,
The AI can find the cavity and
Yeah, exactly.
speak to it.
right?
In the
AI sends an LLM. Okay.
Right.
In the
You know,
Excel
tooth.
spreadsheet.
But you know, so yeah, there's
It's
so many
genius
things in
marketing.
the market that, you know, like I said, I grew up in the car business. What the car business's fascination with balloons is, I don't know. But apparently, balloons attract customers. 5, 6 balloons
Okay.
get people to come in to buy a $50,000 car.
Thank you. Okay, this is what I want to.
It's the same thing.
Okay, how shippers can't tell the. I say shippers can't tell the difference between brokers.
Correct.
Okay, so how does a broker get the shipper's business versus another? Let's do it. Let's go to the moment. Ding, we're at the trade show. There are 5 major brokers with teams of salespeople going for a fleet management company. How does one broker get their business over the other one? Staff, technology, what?
I mean, you have to do your research. Okay. I don't go to a customer unless I already have a problem to solve. Right? You can't just go, hey, so how's your mom? Everybody says that. You come in and go, hey, you know that thing with that you've got at your hub in Atlanta? I figured out how to solve that. You want to talk about that? That's how they get them.
Dang, that got my attention.
Yep. Well,
Right.
understanding their business too, right, Skip? I mean, if you understand their vertical, you can have an intelligent conversation, and then you find out where are the struggles. Is it getting it from the auction? Is it, consistent pickup on time? What are the things that struggle where auto transport is an issue? And then you identify it and see if, and don't say, oh, I've got a solution, but say, we've worked in those different verticals before. We kind of understand your business, and being able to show them what you do. And whether that technology is a GUI interface, easy to use self-service systems, or if you can just hide behind something and you have the gophers behind it doing all the work, they don't care, but show them that you have a solution.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. Everybody wants to talk about all this cool technology, and that's okay, but I don't care. Right?
Well,
if I was a customer, if I was
right.
a car dealer, I don't care. Okay, what do I have to do? Well, you press this button, this button, this button, and next week we'll send you a bill. Deal. I don't care. I don't care that there's giant robots in Tokyo that are doing the numbers, and I don't care.
Skip talks like I do. Giant robots in Tokyo. That is a
Right? You know what I
Jayism.
mean? But there's and it's everybody's really vague about. Okay, they want to tell you about. Oh man, we've got all this technology. What's it do? Well, it's hard to explain. Then
Yeah.
it doesn't do it.
But Skip, I'll real quick, I'll go back to what I had said earlier about data and having data that actually helps you make good business decisions. We worked with one of the largest dealership groups in the US, and we were able to provide them, we can break it down into regions and say this region is spending more money on auto transport for distances, whatever the distance is, and this is the average per truck. This is the average, and in this particular group, they're broken up into sections in the U.S. This in the Midwest are spending so much more than they are in the West for the same amount of vehicles being transported, the same type of vehicles in the same distances. And the thing is, why? So if you can provide part of that, especially for large dealership groups, we showed them we can save almost $5.5 million a year by looking at, and that's on a decimal point, even for dealerships that might be public companies. If you can add value just by adding gross or net profit into what they're already doing, you now are looking at a solution and not just being a provider, but being able to give them data that actually matters if you can get to the right people that are willing to listen to you. So I think, yes, I agree, but in some ways, we should be able to provide them with monthly reporting. We should be able to provide them with data that they can take a look at and they can sort and go, okay, what does it mean to me, and help them make those business decisions.
Yeah, a lot of it, Keith, is to your point. We had to explain it to me. Why is that a big deal, right? And even though because they buy and sell cars, right?
Yep.
And when we talk about like a vehicle life cycle from point to point, a lot of it, we go, okay, here's where it's costing you money is in recon, or here acquisition, or it's taking you too long to buy cars, right? Let's figure that out. Well, they're too busy. They're neck deep in the day-to-day, right? Taking ups, right? Getting appointments, moving cars, right? So you're absolutely right. A lot of times it's that point too. We have to educate the shipper. Right?
No question.
I took several notes. I always take some notes, and I heard a lot of really great points in discussion. I'm saying it this way because we're a quarter after 1. I don't want to take up too much time from anybody, from any viewer, from any of you. And I see a future continuation of this in different forms. What I'd like to say, I guess, before I move on to the final part is, did anybody have anything they wanted to bring that we didn't get a chance to cover between the LLMs, between, talking about shipper carrier relationships? I loved Carrier Advisory Board. That was awesome. And that's more than just some pizzas with the carriers that were in the area, right?
Yeah, that's flying people in and putting competing carriers in the same room to sit around a big table and go, yeah, we're all experiencing that. Or because not only do we learn from the carriers learn from the carriers, right? They go, you're doing what? Oh man, that's a great idea. There's more of those conversations than there are stuff that we do. So yeah, it works.
And in this sense, so because of stress, competition, technology, all the stuff, it seems like sales gets all the attention. That's where all the money goes. Whereas the dispatch, nah. Carrier Advisory Board, nah. Build out that sales bench. Because that's when I really can see a brokerage is, again, at a trade show. I know you can't say that, but I'm saying it. It was at the trade shows that I could see brokers come out in droves, and I'm like, okay, this is where they're focused. And
you hunt where the food is, man.
If you're one truck Charlie, as I can't remember who said that, but you don't stand a chance. You don't stand a chance in this arena of sales. On that level. There's other things you can do, but yeah, and I think that's where some of the frustration comes in. I mean, Dan is in the live chat, and he said it, less illegals in the Midwest behind the wheel. See, on ATI, you can actually say these things. We're one of the last things before the 80s is completely over. But You know, I mean, what happens? What happens next? Clearly, there's going to be another change. What is it? You said consolidation. Is it consolidation? Keith, I think you said consolidation.
I did. I think there'll be consolidation potentially, Jay, with the big brokers. We've already seen, you know, like Assertus just acquired Guardian recently, broker acquiring a broker. Guardian was a great acquisition for them because it came with certain accounts, but it also came with great customer service. I know Guardian very well. They do a great job in servicing their customers and providing value to their carriers. Assertus made a great acquisition there. I think you'll start to see some of these other brokers that may have, and you're buying relationships more than you're buying anything. You're not buying a name anymore. You're just getting another name out, but you're getting relationships on that. On the carrier side, I don't have enough information on the carrier side to know if that consolidation will happen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Keith, on the Guardian thing. Back to your conversation about verticals, right? They acquired Guardian because of the vertical relationship.
Yeah.
Right. So that was, it wasn't that they just needed more trucks.
That's right.
Salespeople. They needed more trucks, more salespeople in a particular part of the market.
Yep.
Right. So
I was with Guardian not that long ago, so I know them very well, and I know that what they do really well in servicing carriers and customers. And they had a nice fleet that they also serviced, and they did great work. It was a very, very good company.
Yeah, we used to use them for the oversized stuff. Yeah.
That's what I read. I read large format vehicles. When you said oversized stuff, tell us more about that.
Water trucks, anything with a tool, the tool bed, the
ladder lift,
bucket trucks, ladder lifts,
U-bodies, booms.
That doesn't fit on a standard.
So I had heard some of that about RCG Logistics, that they also, in addition to repossession and power sports and other types of heavy equipment, right? We're just looking at a business. This is a case study. How is Assertus deciding, its next move? And
they want the people. Well, they look at all the like he said with the verticals. They look at the different verticals and go, okay, who's the best at servicing that vertical? Okay, let's go talk to them.
Yep.
Right? Who's the best at this? Justin and I had a conversation about the riches are in niches. Be the guy that solves the one problem the best, and you're set. You're set for life.
Agreed.
Right?
That is a perfect way to hit the ... on this show. I was going to say ellipses, but what's an ellipses? What's an LLM?
Ellipses, what need a Figaro?
Right. I think it's an opera. Rather than copy paste to every customer, right? LLM. I saw, who had customized order? Was that in David, you had this interview with trans.info. I read the article.
Yeah, what was your question exactly?
Well, were you talking about customized order fulfillment?
Yeah, so essentially what I realized, as I was mentioning earlier, is that the number of communications between dispatching teams is typically managed over email, phone, text. And a lot of that could be automated using these large language models, right? So you could essentially receive an email requesting pricing, the LLM could respond, the customer could confirm booking, and that could essentially go into your database. Like that's where the future of technology is going. And that was what the article was about. We did talk a little bit about GPS tracking and the problem with app proliferation. But yeah, it was an interesting interview. I believe they're based out of Europe, if I'm not mistaken.
So let's say you're a dispatch, because in service, for dealerships in service, they're using voice communication technology, AI, to try to sift through that 40% of basic stuff. When's my car going to be ready? Whatever. You don't have to tie somebody up for that. Is there an AI that a dispatcher could look into to customize communications
I do believe there are a couple of companies. I'm blanking on the name. I'll get back to you on the name. There is a company out there in this space that's creating a logistics AI app. I'm not sure exactly what it does, but I did see an article. I'll make sure I share it with you guys after the show.
I appreciate that because even like Chat GPT allowed even me, Jay, guy sitting here, to type stuff in and it would spit out paragraphs, and I'm like, okay, well, I just saved 20 minutes.
Yeah, and I think the thing, this might be more valuable for Sue. I don't know how many emails you receive in a day, but if you could just imagine just having something that says, oh, I could give an ETA request, like, or an ETA update. And that way you can focus on, the hot loads or anything that's, needs to be prioritized. It's, a force multiplier, in my opinion, where I see, one dispatcher being able to process 10 to 15, maybe even 20 times the amount of loads that they could without having to add more, spend more time or hire more staff.
And that is where that's an equalizer, right? Yeah. And I think that's why Central Bot has gotten attention of some carriers and dispatchers, is because, I'll go to camera one on this. Attention, big companies. All of the 90+% of single owner operator companies, carrier, dispatch, whatever, in logistics, the workhorse, the backbone, the spine of the business is looking for your help technologically to run a tighter ship and make more money. And if you can help them do that, you're going to get their attention.
And one thing to add to that, I think, I'm not necessarily saying that the automation is the key. It's just more about what allows people to build better relationships. So
Right.
if you're able to automate some of that work so that you can then go to a conference, that's the win, right? It's not about eliminating people. It's just more about automating the manual tasks and doing the things that, focusing your time on more value-added activities. That's essentially what it boils down to.
Right. Let the robots handle the numbers. Let the people handle the relationship. Right. The more heads up stuff that my guys can do, the not answering or filtering or calculating, to your point, a lot of companies have basically a system where it looks at the email and goes, oh, this is an ETA email, and it goes to the ETA team, the track and trace people, right? Where this is a sales email, it goes to the sales guy. This is a quote email, and traditionally in most companies, there's somebody looking at every single one of those emails, reading it, going, "Hey, what's this guy want?" Right? Instead of being on the phone talking to the customer, "Hey, how can I help you?" Right? You're absolutely right. It's not about reducing the number of people. It's changing what those people do. Right? Changing how those people add value to the company and to their customers.
Yeah, and I think that boils into, or that, ties into the overarching theme. Like one of the things I was taking some notes in terms of relationships. So like shippers need help with transportation. So that's why they hire brokers or consultants like, Skip and Keith. Brokers don't have assets, so they hire carriers. Carriers don't have sales and marketing, so they need companies like Justin and Sue to handle those things for them. And so, and in general, most of those don't have technology teams, so they work with apps, or they work with consultants like myself, and that's kind of the big takeaway for me from this conversation.
Right. It's like I said when I first started, it's not a competition. We're all parts of the same process, right? Everybody does what they do well, right? I don't manage hours of service. I don't understand how to fix a hydraulic leak. I don't know, right? I don't know where the best place to bulk buy tires is. I don't. I let that guy do that, right? He doesn't build software. He doesn't do business process. He doesn't have 50 sales guys. I do that, right? And so I think that's it. We really have to stop with the head-to-head stuff, right? It's not an adversarial relationship. And the people that make it that way, one, they're going to be less successful, and two, they're the problem with the business. They really are.
Well, and on the money, It's because the money. They say people vote with their wallet.
Right.
You know, when the first time you vote on idealism, and then over time, idealism goes out the window, and you vote on your wallet. And I think that there's an amount of idealism versus wallet that's happened in this industry. It went from we're carrier friendly, we love our carriers, we love our, and then it, but the wallet didn't match all that. You didn't pay me. The way you paid me didn't seem like you loved me.
Well, in a lot, I mean, people have this wild idea about, like what brokerages make, right? I'll tell you the trick. Here it is, 14 to 16% for a large brokerage. That's gross. That's the if I charge $115 for a load, I pay the carrier $100. Okay, now after I pay all the salespeople, the dispatchers, the IT guys, the landlord, all that, average big brokerage makes about 3 to 6% net. Does that sound unfair?
I'm absolutely with you, and I will tell you what you just said.
People act like we're making 100% or something.
In the world of transparency, I think that should be shared more.
Well, no, because that doesn't sound sexy to investors.
No, what?
Right?
But you're not trying to appeal to an investor in this.
In
this conversation, you're trying to appeal to your workforce. And
right, but that's what. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound, especially if they're a publicly held company, that doesn't sound good to Wall Street. That doesn't.
Well, and we all know Wall Street is the most important thing.
Absolutely, that's a problem too. That's a problem.
But every vertical is a little bit different too, Skip.
Yeah,
if you look at the retail side, it's a lot larger on the retail side typically than it's going to be on like a dealership. If you're working individuals, the vertical makes a big difference. So a lot of those, I would say if you're averaging it out, that's probably about right. But there are certainly others that the brokers are doing better than.
Oh yeah, things like this consumer market, it's because there's a lot more involved in that too as a process. But you're correct. But as a blend, as an average, working for brokerages that do basically every vertical, from consumer to heavy equipment, it's about 14 to 16%. The winners are the guys that can hold on to the most money at the end of the day. But freight cost, rate moves freight, right? Eventually, if you get cheap, you start losing, then you start having late loads, and then you start losing customers, and it's just not worth it. Period. For that extra dollar, it's not.
Well, how do some? There are some brokerages that are known to kind of lowball. How do they keep moving everything if they're lowballing the freight? I actually don't know the answer.
Carriers that have been in the business for 6 months,
and they're just dying, right?
And everybody, it's the old joke in the music business. You're doing it for exposure, right? I'll take a slim deal and maybe I'll get my foot in the door with this guy. No, the people that give the crap.
Oh, welcome to Hollywood.
Right, so they live off those people.
Yeah.
They live off those people.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to call XYZ Trucking and say, hey man, can you move that? They're not there anymore. Nobody's answering the phone. Why? Because I put them out of business. Right? It's a case.
And then I guess
those guys they live off the newbies.
After there you go. And after a while, Keith, when you're studying, because if you're sitting in NORAD, auto shipping NORAD, and you're watching the map and you're looking at all the loads and you're zooming in, CSI of the load and this carrier and that carrier. But after a while, if it's all newbies and you've had all this turnover, I guess after a while, like, who cares? I don't even know who that guy is, right? And then job opening, you're not doing that anymore because we don't even know who anybody is.
And that just comes down to the importance of educating carriers. I work with carriers all the time. I actually did this survey at a Houston trucking show, I think about 2 years ago, interviewed about 20 plus owner operators, averaging between 1 to, I say, about 50, 60 trucks. 90% of them don't know their numbers. They don't know their profit margin. They don't know their break-even point. And that's why, to what Skip was talking about, hey, you're moving those low? Yeah, I'll take it. If my truck is moving, then, I'm getting revenue coming in, but little do they know that's negative cash flow.
Right.
And, a couple of months later, they're out of the business. That's the majority of the things. What other things I've seen in the industry that no one talk about is freight consolidation. I know this is talking about auto part moving, but Chicago carriers, there's a lot of other carriers. They would take dirt cheap load. If they take a full truckload, you got 20 pallets, you got 15 pallets, I'll take it and I'll consolidate them in my warehouse and get them to the final destination and redistribute them, right? To them, there's a lot of margin in that as well. We'll put them on rail, right? Those are the things that people don't really talk about, but they're happening. So carriers are doing what they're doing to stay afloat. And brokers, they just, I know they're doing that, but as long as my customer doesn't know, as long as you don't damage the freight, as long as it gets there in one piece, I'm okay with it, right? So there are a lot of those things that where I see from, smaller carriers that I work with, I see those things.
Why do we talk about it? Why do we do this? Why do we just spend 90 minutes talking about this stuff?
Makes me feel better.
Well,
Right.
I mean, somebody has to kind of, has to pull the fire alarm. Somebody has to say, okay, like I said, say the quiet stuff out loud. You have to go, okay, if you want to be in this business long term, you got to what are you doing to make the business better? Right? I know carriers that I can just grab my cell phone and call them. I've known them for 20 years. How are they still in business? Because me and them have figured out a way to help each other, right? And they've learned that. We got to get away from this transactional stuff. That's why we're saying this. It's got to stop being an adversarial conversation. It really does. If I run an air conditioning company, I have to have a good relationship with the people that buy and sell parts for air conditioners, right? Do I have the $100 million to have a warehouse full of air conditioner parts? No. So I'm gonna have. Well, so what's the difference? What's the difference? Everybody does what they do best. So, but we've got to get rid of that boiler room, Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross kind of mentality.
Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross.
Get rid of
Coffees for closers. Hey, has the market shrunk?
It has recently, just because of the interest rates, right? The average American's having a hard time affording a car. Well, why would I make cars when nobody can buy them? Inventory on the lots is going up. I'm sure Keith knows more about this than I do. My dad used to keep a 30-day inventory, and then it turned to 60. You've got dealerships out there with new cars that are 140 days old.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. They're already paying interest on those cars and they haven't even sold them yet. Right? So the market has shrunk. Until some of the economic factors change, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
All right. It's going to be tough is the perfect way to end this. So, all right, I just want to thank Skip and Justin and David and Keith. This was awesome. Thanks for being a part of this epic panel on industry logistics show. Sue, this is our 162nd show. That was pretty neat.
162nd.
162nd. That's crazy. And it is now called Industry Logistics. It was Dispatching Live up until recently. But it just as everything, has to be upgraded, updated. We're not playing the Atari anymore, and so now, because that's what we're talking about, industry logistics. And so, I want to do. We've had a lot more interviews lately. This could be the biggest panel we've had during the day, and I think so. And Sue, you're on courtesy mute too. And by the way, next Thursday.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Next Thursday, we're gonna do a Baltimore port bridge collapse impact on the auto industry panel.
Wow.
Yeah, still putting that together, but yeah, there's so much to talk about, and it's, we're trying to help. Have you guys seen other transportation media kind of growing? Seems like media in general is growing. AI is growing. There's more podcasts all the time, right,
Yeah.
Justin? I've seen you've had some exposure on some different shows.
On YouTube. Yeah, I think a lot of people trucking just in general is getting a lot of attention post-COVID, in my opinion. A lot of investors are almost every week I get them reach out to me trying to figure out what we're building, and then podcasts too. There's always new podcasts. Hey, let's hop on a podcast and talk about this. So I mean, I think it's a great exposure that our industry definitely need. It's going to push our industry forward with all those attention.
So it would seem that there's a purpose to all this media and improvement. And so thank you all so much. I'll let you go. I really will let you go now. So it's just hard to say goodbye. Thank you all so much.
See you guys.
I'll see you on
Have a good
LinkedIn.
one.
Okay?
Bye, guys.
All right. And so what I'll do is, I will we'll go ahead and do that. And thank you so much. And then Sue,
Yes.
that was a pretty good one. What's your takeaway? I know
Well,
you're working and stuff. That's fine. You're good.
No, I was listening. I was
Okay.
actually listening for most of
Wow.
it.
Crazy.
Only had a few things I had to do.
Yeah.
I think it's honestly, we probably need to do more of this. I think we need to bridge the gap between brokers and transporters, because you're right. They vice versa. I think both parties treat each other like we're against each other most of the time. That's what I get from it a lot of times when I talk to different people. And that includes your dealerships too, because sometimes they're worse than an actual broker when it comes to choosing, there's certain things that they say, like, is your driver of a certain ethnicity, that irritate me and stuff like that. And you get that a lot. I mean, and I think sometimes they think that we're out to get them and vice versa. Because like a lot of my transporters, when we were talking about broker fees and he was breaking it down, I try to break it down for them when they have a fit about how much they got to pay back for a broker fee. And a lot of times they don't even know there's a broker fee involved, right? But a lot of times we have to send back $100 or $200 or something like that. And I had one driver in particular that always just threw a meltdown completely. It didn't matter if it was $25. He thought they were ripping him off. And I tried to explain just like what he did, like have this expenses. He didn't care. They were out to get him, kind of thing. So I think doing more of this stuff and more people joining us and learning different things, I think that will help. And I think a carrier board like they were talking about would be fantastic. Could you imagine the stories that they all tell each other to learn? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Don't go park at this place, or you're going to get arrested, or you're going to get a ticket. That kind of thing. There's all those kind of stories that would help them learn different things, especially if they were new.
It's, as you talk about, just in what you just said, this seems rather insurmountable.
It does.
Well, I don't even know. And I don't know if...
How do you bridge that? Yeah.
And I don't even know, I'm just going to say it. It's not like there's a ton of views happening right now.
Right.
This is not a sought-after topic.
Right. And then, in general, they probably don't care.
and I'm just going to say it now, Mother Trucka focuses on, kind of the sensational news of the day.
Right.
Sorry, MT, but that's what I see.
Right.
And that gets views. And that's where we're at. It's that This is not a business-oriented industry.
No.
And it's hard, too. And I tell you, here's another thing, too. Because I can say this now. After running the experiment of ATI, I can't believe how many auto transport businesses and associations don't give a hoot about any of this.
Nope.
And it speaks volumes. I've actually gotten a lot more interest from the broker crowd than the carrier crowd. Why? Because brokers are focused on business. And that does not bode well for the carrier side. I mean, we'll keep doing it. But that's actually why it's not dispatching live anymore, because there's only so much that gets through. I don't know why. It's weird.
Skip or David said something about the fact of brokers, and you and I both know that there's always going to be some people that care and some people that don't, right? And it's going to be hard to get the people who don't care in that group of people for them to understand the breakdown of what a transporter goes through in all of this. And they don't see that. They just think, oh, pick up this car, bring it to me. Doesn't matter. You know?
It's like trying to get Democrats and Republicans to see
friends.
something.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
it's true.
You're
You
right,
can't.
yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So we'll leave it at that. This was a great show.
Yes.
I'm glad that we'll definitely I thought it was really neat too. I thought Skip, Justin, David, and Keith all brought different topics, and
For
we
the
did
whole
try.
thing.
Yeah, it was
rounded
really
it
neat.
out.
Really neat stuff.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at do they represent more of the broker or the carrier? They represent more of the broker. They do.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like it or not.
Yeah.
But we talked about broker and carrier.
Right.
And I think Skip started off really well. They're not competitors.
No, and I think, just like we were talking about, that me being both lets me see both sides of this. And that's why most brokers don't see what the transporter goes through, or like their engine blew up, or their, what their expenses are. I see that by doing this with my drivers, but most brokers don't get that experience. I think they should. It would make a difference.
And here it is. See, but I am fair and balanced. Live chat. Dan, the Dooley Holland man, says, I just had a broker charge $150 on a $350 paid carrier, charge the customer $500. The math don't equate to 15%. I also, for years, have been trying to talk about the disparity of the rate.
Right.
There are big brokers, and Skip was talking about, okay, it's the net after all the expenses. Well, if you're a big broker and you're paying 10 salespeople over $100K a year, and that gets calculated out of your expenses, well, then hold on a second. That's part of it, in that the money is spent on the brokerage and not passed on to the carrier very much of the time.
Yeah.
And even though I've been saying that for years, I feel like I've tried to represent carrier mindset for years. It still just doesn't get through. We are at Democrat versus Republican. It doesn't matter. That's why I don't even know why we bother. Why do we bother?
Well, it's also put in perspective, they can't charge the appropriate rate that needs to be charged because their customers are going to freak out because they have trained them to think that it has to be cheap, right? Everything's cheap.
Thank you. And this is where the shipper is part of the problem, is that as a shipper, and we all count as shipper, at some point of the day, we're the customer, whether it's at the grocery store, right? Or we're buying something, or we'll spend $1 million on our phones.
Right. Right.
But
True.
we will not go over $100 on moving our car.
Right. True. I mean, that's
What's
true.
up with that?
You're right.
I mean, I don't, so I think that's probably part of the problem is the size of the battleship that we're trying to move is way bigger than we realize.
Yeah.
So we may as well just enjoy ourselves and
try to help.
I don't know. I'm not sure what we can do, but we are talking about it. And I also like the way it gets talked about. It's very real. This conversation is accessible. And you actually, I think, just in today's show, let's say you are a carrier, an owner-operator, a one-man show, if you listen to today's show, you will pick up certain points of how to at least speak to your next customer in a different way.
Yeah.
So I took some notes. All right, well, listen, that was awesome. I think that's it. We're done.
Okay, cool.
Oh, an hour and 45 minutes. So thank you so much for all the time today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank your crew. Thank you, Murphy Auto Transport Services. We
I'm
appreciate
by
you.
myself today.
Oh, well. All right. There you
I
go.
had a doctor's
Welcome to
appointment,
dispatch.
so-
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That is Auto Transport.
Yeah.
All right. So if I said, what do we say, office, it would just be me and you.
Goodbye, Sue.
All right. Well, goodbye, Sue. Thanks, everybody. Take care. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Let us know how we can help. Peace out.